Good day everyone. Today we will continue our talk about control flow commands, and we will see while loop, and we will introduce some stopping condition in order to control the while loop. We will write several functions in order to get familiar with concepts of functions and control flow. Now let's get back to our MATLAB. And if you remember what we have done till now, we have learned how to write a function, how to write an M file, and we have seen how we can use if and else, and for. Now let's make a new M file. And what we want to do, we want to generate, similar to what we had before, generate a matrix or a vector of 1 by 7, and we want to fill it with random numbers which are, let's say, between -4 and 7. If you remember, we had previously written an example like this. I'm opening our example, which was the test 3, and we made this one by using a for. Now what we want to do, we want to do the same thing, but this time we want to use a while loop. And the question was, generate a matrix of 1 by filled by random numbers, which the size is 1 by 7, and the random numbers are between -4 and 7, and then find the average of positive numbers. Now how we used to do it, if you remember, we were defining A to be -4, B to be 7, and we had this function which we discussed about it before, and we said if you want to make a random number between A and B, we can use a formula like this, which the size here is 1 and 7. Now we have R, it has random numbers. What we want to do, we want to find the summation of the positive number plus the number of positive numbers that we have. So what I can do is I define an S to be 0, and I define the counter to be also 0. How many numbers do we have in general? 1 by 7, which is 7. So I can always say that I can say while in the while we put a stopping condition, because how it happens, the structure of the while is in this form. We let's comment and end. This is a structure. We have a while, we have a condition. If the condition is true, we come to the comments, and then we go to the end. Now let's see what is the condition. Now we have 7 numbers, so we have to traverse from the first one till the last one. So we can always define a new counter. Let's call it while counter WCNT, and it is equal to 1. And while this WCNT is less than or equal to 7, because we have 7 numbers, I will do some operation. And if the operation is done, I will increment my while counter. Now first, this is 1 is less than 7, we do something, then it will become 2, we go up, 2 is less than 7, so we can continue this one 7 times. Now what are the comments, and what do we have to do in here? What we do, we are checking if the number that we have, let's call it R, is greater or equal than 0. Now here, as you notice, I didn't write anything. The reason is that we want to talk and discuss what I have to put in here. What is the index of the R? The index of the R is actually inside the WCNT, because this is the element 1, element 2, element 3. And if it is positive, I have to increment my accumulator to have the value of R WCNT. Also, I have to increment my counter. What is this counter? This counter is actually specifying, let's even put a comment, this shows how many positive numbers we have. What does the WCNT shows? It shows which element is being processed now. Now we have 7 elements, so that one is taking care of that. And then the task is done, so we put an end. Now, after here, how we can find the average? The average simply is being calculated by S divided by CNT. We know that we have to check if CNT is not equal to 0. Then we can have the average to be S divided by CNT, and then we display it in this form. The average is a num to str, which converts a number into a string of AVE, and then end, or else we can put error division by 0. And now let's run the program, and if you just directly press the run, if you have not saved it yet, it asks you how do you want to save it. Let's say I will put it like test4, and as soon as I save it, it will run the program. But if I do a small changes in here, like for instance in the error I can make the T to be capital, and if I just press the run, automatically it saves. It doesn't do the save as, so it always does the saving. So I can always look at what is the values of R, and it tells me what it is. Now, what will happen if I want to have a matrix of, let's say, 6 by 7? And the random number are between -4 and 7. I can have it as a 6 and 7. Then my counter, I will check from the first element till last element. How many elements I have? 42. So I can just simply update it in this form. I put the size to be 6 by 7, so I can have a matrix of 6 by 7. And I find the average of the elements. Because I have 42 elements, I start from the first one till the last one. So I'm running it, and it tells me what is the value. Let me just clear the screen and also clear everything. So here it says that the average is this, and if I look at the R, these are the values of R. Remember, in the early lectures we had this, that this is element 1, this is element 2, this is element 3, this is 4, 5, 6, and then here 7, 8, 9. So we do the column-wise numbering, but we have 42 elements. Now, let's enhance this program furthermore by introducing a few more comments. First of all, let the user enter the value of A and B. So I will put input. Please enter a value. And for B, I'm just copying the same thing. Now, we want B to be greater than A, and assume that the user does not care about it. So we have to make sure that A is smaller than B. So what we can do is, we can say if A is greater than B, what we will do, we will define B to go to a temporary value, and then we put A into A into B, and the value of A will be temp. So by this we are making sure that A is smaller than B, because if A is greater than B, we are swapping the values of A and B. And then now another thing is, what is the value of this function, the variable R? What is the size of the variable R? We know that it's 6 by 7. We can always ask Sx to be, let's say, please enter the number of rows of your matrix, and then we can define sy to be the number of the columns of your matrix, and then here it will be sx and sy. So the value in here will be sx multiplied by sy. So this is a more intelligent way of programming. Let's run it. It says that please enter a value. I enter a value, let's say -9, and then I enter the value of 12. Then I say that I want to have a matrix of 25 by 67, and it says the average is this. And I can look at the R. This is the matrix of R. However, I can look at a portion of the R. For instance, I want to look at we have 25 rows and 67 column. If you look at your workspace, you see what is R. Well, you can double click on it and it shows you what is R. However, I want to look at, let's say, the row 5 till row 10, row 5 till row 10, and column 34 till 39 of R. So I want to see some portion of an R. This is how I am indicating it. And it tells me that what is the row 5 till row 10, column 34 to column 39 of R, if you need to have some specific view of this R. So let's clear it and let's go back to our program. So here our program is entering the value of A and B. If A is greater than B, it is swapping it. Let's run it and do it. Be it having A to be 8 and B to be -10. What it does, it automatically swap them sizes. Let's have this one 10 and 8, and it says that the average is 4.2472. So it will swap them A and B. Now, one of the things that I want to do with this example is this swapping part. I want to write a function which does the swapping part. So in other words, I want to write A and B is equal to, I define, let's say, swap function, and I'm sending A and B into it. So how it will do is in this form. I will cut this and I will come and I will make a new script and I write it as function A and B. I give the value of x, or I can give the value of A and B as an input, and it does this in the here. And I'm saving it, and I save it as a swap function. Then I come here and I run it, and I give the value of let's say 8 and -7, 10 by 10, and it calculates the value. What now? You know that my A was initially 8 and my B was initially -7, but I want A to be smaller. So if I look at the A should be -7, which it is, and B should be 8, which it is as 8. So the function swap is using it. Now here in this example we have seen how you can use the while and how we can define a function and also use the function in here. So we have learned a very important function which is called swap function. One of the good things about this example is here you see that your function is returning two variables. So you give some input values and it returns two variables. You don't need the semicolon in here. So this is actually one of the other beauty of MATLAB. Your function can return as many variables as you like. So here my function is returning to a variable as you are saying it. Now we have to continue our talk by talking about um, how we can introduce more logic operator inside these loops, and then we will talk about different type of functions and some specific tasks for these functions. Assume we have a polynomial and we want to solve the polynomial, we will learn how we can find the roots or how we can give some value into these functions. These are the topics that we will talk in the next lectures. I hope that you enjoyed today's lecture. Be single.